Welcome to So You're Kinda a Big Deal, a weekly podcast deep diving into the lives of emerging and established tattoo artists. Listen in as we dig into origin stories, industry hot topics, and what it takes to survive in the world of tattooing. This is Tattoo Shop Talk. Join your hosts Shawn, Hedley, and Dave Allen every week as we host a new guest. The Hold Fast Social Club keeps expanding and adding features to make the life of tattooers easier. We just launched a classified section for pros only. Sell your tattoo gear, prints, whatever, in one spot. This is on top of a platform with peer-to-peer vouching, direct connect, a wait list, and geo-searching. Now you can find guest spots or forever homes at studios everywhere. No guessing, no awkward conversations. See what shops or artists have to offer. Mark them as favorites or add yourself to their wait list to let them know you are interested. Hold Fast Social Club keeps adding features to make connecting easy. Pros only, a place where the best of us can elevate each other.
It's no secret Dave and I have a good guy connection, but we have a great relationship with many respected suppliers. Working with Lucas Ford at Classic Tattoo, I saw firsthand the blood, sweat, and stress he went through building Good Guy. Creating products for your peers is no easy task. With many to critique any small missteps, including myself, tattooer owned and family operated since day one. With Lucas, Rob, and Natalie at the helm, you know exactly what you are getting. High quality products, fair prices, and excellent customer service. Shop, support, Good Guy. Oh my God. Where's my coffee? Here it is. Oh, there we go. I'm Shawn. That's Dave. And you are. Hey, Sharky. Nice to meet you.
Dude, it's very nice to meet you guys too.
I'm actually really excited for this. I had just randomly I was just the Explorer page. I'm not on social media a lot. I get kicked off all the time, but I was going through the Explorer page one day with my shop page and I just saw your work and I didn't look at the profile. I was just like, oh, that's bold and badass. Started following and just, I'd see your work more and more and more. I had no idea who you were, male, female, nothing until you started posting the history stuff. And then that's when I was curious as to like, who is this person? And that's when I actually went into your profile and started looking stuff. And I was just like, I need to know more. So thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah. Like honor. Thank you.
Yeah. Like our first episode that we did, we had no idea we were going to make it to this many episodes. But in the first episode, when we were talking about kind of people we want to have on here and stuff like that, I actually say you. I didn't remember. And it's funny though, because I didn't remember your name or anything. And I was just like, okay, I'll find her on Instagram. And I was explaining some stuff. So I'm very excited that we made it this far and we managed to get you on here.
Absolutely.
So, thank you for joining us on So You're Kind of a Big Deal. We'll just start with the very generic kind of stuff, who you are and how you got your start.
Yeah, for sure. That's crazy to hear my name in a sentence says you're kind of a big deal. I think that's that you guys do that. But my name is Sharky. That's a tattooer pen name. That's not my real name. People always think that's my real name. It's not my real name. And I've been tattooing for 13 years. It'll be 14 years in February of next year.
Sweet. Congratulations.
Thank you. And I just consider myself like the luckiest girl in tattooing. You know, I got broken in the right way by accident, you know, by being the person that would just to hang around the shop. I just happened to be hanging around the right shops at the right time and just had the gift given to me that way. I wasn't looking for it, that's for sure. But tattooing has a way of finding people, like the tattoo gods kind of know who's going to be the vessel. And it's like, oh, you, like your life's already pretty fucked up. You can handle it. And then that's it.
It's so true.
Yeah. And it's actually at least interesting what you said, Shawn, how you didn't know that what I was or who I was, and it was kind of nameless and faceless. That's all very intentional. So it's good to know that even after all these years, that still works.
Nice.
Good. Yeah.
You want to keep a little bit of mystery, right?
Yes.
So what was this? Where was the shop that you got your start in? And what was the circumstances surrounding you being like someone who's just hanging out in a shop?
Booze, as usual. I was a seasoned bartender, so I used to bartend in Manhattan, at like in Times Square and in Wall Street. And during that recession back in, I guess that was now 2009 ish, 9 or 8. I got fired from my bartending job, and I was like super depressed one day, and I was kind of like tying them on real tight. And my boyfriend was like, "Man, we need to just go down to the tattoo shop and hang out." And we went down to True Blue in Queens, which was owned, maybe still is owned by Vinny Signorelli. He was the drummer from Unsane, so it was like the place
Yeah.
to fucking be. We went
Yeah.
out there,
No
and I was
doubt.
just shooting the shit with Vinny and kind of telling him I got fired and just kind of. And he's like, you know what? You'd be really good at the front desk. Like, do you want a job? He's like, you got the tattoos, you got the attitude, you got the face. I'll just show you everything once you get here. So I got hired at True Blue on the spot.
Nice.
And it just happened to be like kind of an all-star tattoo cast that was working there, but I didn't really realize it at the time. But Michelle Tarantelli worked there, and Hillary Fisher White worked there, and people from Three Kings would come through there, and these guys are all connected. So I just always thought that's what tattooing was. I was like, oh yeah, it's just these like professional people who were like, I had not yet understood the realm of unprofessional tattooing or a scratcher or anything like that. So I got lucky because I had always seen it being done well. And of course that leads to you saying like, oh, well, maybe I could do it. I'm not sure. I wasn't looking to do it professionally, but I had a moment where I was having just kind of a bad day on the floor in general. I just felt like everyone was yelling at me and I wasn't setting up the tables fast enough. And Michelle Tarantelli, like in passing, said, oh, I was where you were once. Like, don't worry about it. It gets better. And I was like, get fucked. Like, you what? You were? And I was like, cool. I guess I'm going to go figure out where you guys got all those machines from because, I used to do orders. So I was like, I'm going to go down to Unimax and I'm going to go like sneak in there. And I don't know if have you guys ever been down to Unimax in Canal
Never.
Street?
No.
It's like invisible. It's like you can't even find it. And when you go down to Canal Street, it's like every nationality is represented on this one street, and they're all selling shit in the street that it's just like it's nightmare, right? And somewhere in the middle of that is a supply company. I remember I was like walking down there and I was calling the piercer on the phone and I was trying to be incognito. I was like, what color is the door to Unimax? I was just wondering. I was just like, and it's like in between, like, across the street from a Burger King and beside like a jewelry store, and you go up these sketchy stairs, and it's like super fucking sketchy. But that's where you would have to buy tattoo supplies in, unless you were ordering them online, which I was not gonna do, because you couldn't, because at that time you had to have like an email and tell the shop you were working at and shit.
Yeah.
And I bought, a nice setup from Wes over there, who I didn't realize who he was at the time, but like I was able to talk to him and hang out with him. And I started tattooing, just immediately scratching out of the house, just right away. And
So you
and
didn't tell
as
you
one
didn't tell
does.
anybody in the shop what you're doing. You're just
Oh
totally
no, absolutely fucking not. Like tattooing toes and all these like hidden spots because it's Queens, the tight neighborhood, so you can't just be like, I like live 16 blocks from the shop I work at, so it's like real incognito. But I did a tattoo on my boyfriend, and a friend of his saw the tattoo who knew John Farrig, who worked at Inner City Tattoo. And that's the sister shop to Ron and Dave's out on the island. And they were like, who did that tattoo? You should tell her to come in and get a job. Like she would run the street shop. She would do great there. And I did. I went, I did the interview.
rad.
I mean, the shittiest portfolio. I mean, these were the worst tattoos, but take it on a digital camera and you stick the digital camera in the computer and you download it onto the file and take it to the Walgreens and print out your sheet book. And I brought my sheet book and they were like, yeah, no problem. Like show up tomorrow and it's fine. And that was the beginning of everything. Like that's
Amazing.
how it ended up happening.
And how long were you there for?
Before we started fighting, a year. I was at Inner City Tattoo for 1 calendar year before John and I were at each other's throats. And actually we're like best of friends now, but back then it was tough. Inner City Tattoo was
Some
named
people
Inner
just can't
City
work together.
Dude, we were children, honestly. Like, there's so much,
Yeah.
shop politics, but it was real wild. And Elizabeth was a real tough city to work in. And yeah, it just got real crazy real fast. This Inner City was a walk up shop, like, it was a second floor walk up with like no visible windows. So you couldn't see what was going on inside. And that's cool when there's like a bunch of dudes in there with.
Damn.
But when I was in there by myself, you always had to have a knife or a bat or something like tucked under the seat because
No doubt.
motherfuckers, they would come in with their shit and be like, "Are you gonna like take that out your pocket and put it to the side so I don't feel like you're going to shoot me the whole time? Like, just make me imagine you're not going to rob me." It was rough. So yeah, that lasted for a
Yeah.
year before I started going on the road and tattooing.
You must have some wild stories from an environment like that. I've tattooed in Shawn too, and some Toronto inner city stuff, but I imagine it doesn't compare to New York.
No.
Probably not.
No.
I always think, Canada,
No.
they're like, "Hey, buddy, put your hands up," like it's almost a little more friendly. I don't know.
I don't recall them being that nice, but
Yeah, not that. No. I remember, even in like earlier days, there was bad. I was tattooed in an area in Toronto where it was government housing and stuff, and yeah, I'd have guys coming in, and you'd see the bulges in their sweatpants
Yeah.
and stuff. But even in as late as the late '90s, I had clients in Vancouver, in like the more affluent area that we tattooed in, guys coming in and being like, can I just put this under your counter, and taking off like underarm holsters and stuff, because
Yeah.
the gangs were just so big on the West
Yeah.
Coast, and stuff like that. But yeah, I never felt like they were going to shoot me, but I used to worry about them getting shot in our
Yeah.
shop, because we had a lot of crossover people, right? It's just like,
Yeah.
fuck, it's just like, I tattooed this guy, and 3 days later, it's like, did you hear about your client so and so? I'm not gonna say his name, but I'm like, no. They're like, oh yeah, he got shot in the face at a wedding. I'm like,
You're like,
what?
"Oh, how very Scarface of them."
Cool. Maybe we should start thinking about not tattooing some people.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
I hear that.
Oh fuck.
So you started traveling. What did you do? What did that entail? Where'd you
So
go?
I started after the inner city thing didn't work out. I kind of like hopped around from shop to shop for a little under 2 years, but during that time, I was doing a lot of conventions. So I started meeting people, and I was like super enthusiastic. Like, it didn't really matter who the person was. Like, when I met Gilmani, I was like, "Hey, I heard, the whole thing is being run by Hell's Angels. He's got on all his reds." And I was just like, "Can I sit behind your booth and watch you tattoo right now? Like, I really admire you." It didn't matter who it was. I was right in their fucking face. And through doing that, people just kept saying, they're like, "If you're ever on my side in my state, like, come through. You can guest. You seem extremely enthusiastic about this." Like, and I would be honest with people. I was like, "I'm trying to tattoo in a traditional vein, and I have like the credentials for it, but I'm not in a space like the shops I was tattooing at were just gap filler shops. I wasn't getting that education that I needed to pull off not only the tattoos properly, but I felt like ethically I wasn't tattooing right either. Like, there's a traditional tattooing is not just the actual picture, it's the way of life, and I wasn't quite right. So I had kind of gathered up one day. I came with this idea. I was like, what if I went to all of those guest spots all at the same time? Like, I just left. And so I
Nice.
did. I had like $1,000, and I bought a plane ticket to Seattle by way of Sarah Purr and Josh Wright, because they were working. Well, Sarah was working at Vivian Lazanga shop. And I was like, I'll just start there and work my way down the coast and back over again. And, worst thing comes to worst, like, I'll just do something and go to jail. Like, if that happens, I'll have a place to stay. That was like the last plan. And I never had to do that. But it was incredible. Like, that was really the beginning of the true traditional education, and where you kind of get sucked into the oral tradition by being around it. These old timers are constantly telling you stories, or they're telling you how to fix your machines or whatever the thing is, and then you become the vessel for that. And then you do that for over a
Yeah.
decade, and then all of a sudden you talk to someone and they're like, that I didn't know those things. And I was like, oh, I should probably start writing books and doing these I did like a little online, I don't even know what you call it, showcase for ladies of tattooing worldwide, where I was trying to delve into the history of female tattooing from the beginning of time till now. It's very difficult, but I'm trying to work it
No
out. But
doubt.
yeah, that's how it started, going on the road. And I was just traveling by train. I take the plane across country and then work at the shops, make enough money for the ticket to the next place, buy a ticket the next day, and just keep working down and calling people out on those guest spots that they said that I could have. It
Nice.
worked.
How long were you at Vivian's?
I think that first time I was probably guesting there maybe like a week and a half. Feels like it
Okay.
could have, I mean, I was probably in Seattle longer, but I don't think I worked at the shop for more than 2 weeks before I had to move
Yeah.
down to Bellingham was, I think, the next stop, because I worked at Old Gold with Chu Garcia, which is now Faithful Tattoo.
Oh,
Oh, cool. Yeah.
nice.
Oh,
Oh,
man.
interesting
Right
thing,
on.
like the Canada crossover, because I was looking at this stuff and I was like, I know a Canadian tattooer. I know King Lin. That guy,
Yes.
yeah,
That
and I
fat
know you guys
fuck.
are like, he's super rad. Like we used to hang out at the Boston Tattoo Convention. I got tattooed by him twice. Like he was like
Cool.
party dude. Like we would hang out till 6, 7 o'clock in the morning with a bunch of tattooers and just
Yeah.
tattoo. And he's very rad. He had a very strong influence on me when I
Yeah.
was getting into tattooing.
Oh, right on. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
He's
awesome.
come and guest spot at my shop and stuff. I've actually known him since before he was tattooing, actually. I met him in
Oh my gosh,
1993 or 4. Yeah.
that's
Like a
amazing.
long time ago.
Such a
Yeah.
small
Yeah.
community,
So love that
small
guy.
world.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
Absolutely. Cool. So how long were you on the road for?
Probably 3 months. And I do
Okay.
that pretty regularly now still. I'm in a relationship, like serious relationship now, where there's like children involved. So I try not to leave them for those longs of stints of time. But I try to regularly go and do my guest spots for about 2 to 3 months at a time, because there's also like a crossover in my personal life where I like to be on the road. So I have a conversion van and I like to travel by train and I like to camp. So tattooing manages to make those lifestyles like viable, because when you're out there, you can
Yeah.
go do the shop for 2 weeks, kind of re up on your cash, and then continue forward. But yeah,
You're speaking
every
Dave's
year sets
language.
yeah.
What
Every
kind of
year
van you
sets
got?
at least 2 or 3 months.
Tell me about your van. What are you driving?
Okay, her name is Morticia. I love her very much. She's a 95 G20, and she has been to every coast already. I got her in
Sweet.
4 years ago, and I've already gotten her to every coast. So now the next kind of trip,
Amazing.
I'm hoping that I can do like one all the way around instead of just darting back and forth in these directions. So I just got to work that
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
Like I keep wanting to just throw these kids in the van and do this.
Totally.
They're
Get them on the
so
road, right?
they're not ready for it. They're so not ready. They've never met
Uh,
anybody like me, so it's like I'm still easing them into it.
Yeah.
I was in
Yeah.
your neck of
Dave
the
loves the
woods
van
last
life.
January.
Oh
Me
yeah,
and my partner have a van, and we were supposed to be in California. We ended up in Texas, and
that happens.
17,000 K in like 8 states in a month. It was awesome.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so freeing because you don't ever have to worry about where you're going to sleep. So you just put in as many miles in the day as you can,
Yeah.
and then just pull over.
Yeah. And if shit's not right, you just fucking move somewhere else. Like
Yeah,
the it's not warm enough. So let's fucking go to South Texas because it's fucking 30 degrees. Like
you got to follow the sun. That's the
it's
rule.
great. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Do you
God damn
tattoo
it.
out
I'm
of
going to
the
be
van?
on.
Oh, I'm sorry. What was that?
Do you tattoo out of the van ever?
Not yet, but I'm working on it. And
Nice.
I'm working on it in like a significant way. Like I'm really planning something big for next year with a friend of mine that involves like the Vans. Because Ronnie DeLacqua, he used to, well, he hasn't done it in a long time, but he used to take this van out upstate in Pennsylvania. It was like this big, it was more than a van, it was like a trailer, and he set it up like carny style and would tattoo out of it at a fairground like every year since the fucking 80s. And I've always been obsessed with that. I was like, so I'm trying to recreate that vibe for real.
Cool.
Yeah.
Amazing. So, traveling around for 3 months, what made you stop? Which shop made you kind of want to stop for a bit?
Pete and Kubo's actually in Queens was the shop that made me come back home. Um, I had actually gotten like a Facebook message from Rich Fi. Rich Fi is the owner of R&D in Queens. He's the R of the D. And
All right.
he's like, hey, kiddo, like if you are serious about this and you want to be in a traditional environment, you need to go and try and get a job over there with Pete Giaquinto and John Culminati. Both of them have passed on now. Yeah, Kubo actually just died like a couple months ago. He's like, but that's really where it's at. That's the oldest tattoo shop in Queens, period. They're looking for somebody. How soon can you get back? And I was like, yo, 2 weeks. I'm back there. And I went up there and I was fucking scared because I heard, and none of the stories were true, but I heard crazy stories about that shop. It was like, don't ever go to Pete and Kubo's tattoo. Like, you'll die. You'll come inside and they'll make you smoke meth before your tattoo. It was like, it's not like that at all. It was super fucking chill. They're just a bunch of old dudes, but it was rad. I went up there and, they really were concerned about me as a person more than the portfolio. Having Rich send me over was kind of enough, but they just wanted to know if I could handle what it was there because it is a boys club shop for sure. You know what I mean? So it's rough and tumble, but I mean, working around Pete Giaquinto and Ronnie, I mean, it was another one of those shops where everybody just comes through. It was just Sunday nights, they'd all want to go and hang out and have, Sunday dinner. Because also they were, most of the men there were Italian. So that's just like embedded in their culture. They all want to have like family dinners. So, I'm sitting at a table with, like Richie Montgomery and Tony Polito. And I'm like, like just with my mouth fully stitched closed and my ears as wide open as possible. Yeah, it was
amazing.
Again, changed the trajectory of my career, kind of being broken in that environment, because as much history and lineage and conversation is going on, you're also tattooing your ass off. Like when you roll up to the shop in the morning, people are already waiting at the front door. And you know what I mean? It's like baby name, paw print, something crazy on the butthole, like all day long. It was rad. I would never trade those days in for anything. Those men really gave a lot of their time and energy to a kid like me, and I feel like I could never really repay them.
Cool. How long were you there for?
I was there for 2 years, 2.5. And then when I was out on the road, Pete died. So maybe it was 3 then, because I was on the road, Pete passed away. And when I came back, I put in my year's notice because I wanted to go. Like if Pete wasn't there, I just didn't want to be there. It just didn't feel the same anymore. And it was becoming more of a young tattooer shop, which as a business model is probably what you should do right now. But for me, I wasn't done. So I knew I needed to move on. I just knew. So I went back out on the road again and accidentally ended up in Texas, as one does. Dave understands this. You just have a plan to be somewhere else. Yeah, you end up in Texas. I was actually like down on my luck. A bunch of guest spots hadn't worked out. I was running out of cash. I was in San Diego, I think. And I was like in this shitty hotel, and they had this like cabana bar next door where these old people were hanging out, and I was like spending my last money, just kind of drinking with these old people. And they were like, you just got to follow your heart, kid. You know, you just got to figure it out. Blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't know what that means, like, at all right now. Uh, and I like, I don't, and I went through my phone, and I was like, I'm going to call Gil. I was like, I'm going to call Gil Monty and see what he's doing. Doesn't pick up the phone. So then I called Kathy Monty because I was like, she'll pick up the phone. And she was just like, yeah, don't, if you're trying to go to Texas on Gil, like, don't do that. Try to find another way to do it right now. So I had a buddy, his name was Dick. He works in Berlin now. And I knew that he worked somewhere in Texas. And I was like, where's that shop you work at in Texas? And he was like, oh, you know, it's Classic Tattoo in San Marcos. But, like, you know, you got to talk to the lady, talk to Morgan, see what's up. I just called this lady up out of nowhere. And I was like, hey, I'm a tattooer. I'm on the road. I'm not quite sure where to go right now, but I need a place to work. You know, can I come work at your shop? And she was like, sure. And took the last of the money, bought the plane ticket the next day, flew out. She picked me up at the airport. She dropped me off at the motel, which I like barely had any cash to pay for. And she was like, so when do you want to start working? I was like, tomorrow. Like, absolutely not telling her, like, I literally don't have another day's worth of cash to survive. And again, it was another classic tattoo shop at the time. Andrea Elson was working there. You know, Morgan Egan was working there. I mean, it was like a heavy hitter shop. It was like the heaviest shop I had worked at, as far as now having to mold the world. It's like, okay, you've got all like the real world education as far as tattooing is concerned, but like, can you actually fucking tattoo? Like, this is one of those shops where you can't hide behind anything. And I walked in there and I felt really raw and I felt really exposed. And I was like, this is where I need to fucking be for sure. So I sold all my belongings and moved out to Texas and worked at Classic Tattoo for 7 years, right up until recently, where I opened up my private studio. And had things not gone super south there, and they didn't go south because we're all still friends and we hang out like regularly, but COVID and the recession and there's a lot of things, I could talk forever about it, but it has changed the way the shop environment works. Like, something about it,
it's changed people.
It's changed people, yes, and you're seeing different versions of people because our priorities as people beyond tattooers is changing. So this like communal thing that we once did, it's just working less and less, and I don't know what's happening. I could probably talk for 6 episodes about that kind of stuff, but you're feeling it too. We're all feeling it.
Oh yeah, we've dealt with it here in my studio. I had issues, and I think what I saw in my community anyway was a lot of people that were barely holding on. COVID just they just couldn't cope anymore. So whatever behavior came out of that, and whatever changes they had to make, that was the impetus for it. It just happened like that.
Yeah.
We have some mutual friends that they changed and they're not coming back from it. Like, it's just like they, you know,
see ya.
Yeah, politically, all the different weird things where it became like this inner battle. They just were like, this is my line and this is gonna be it forever. I was just like, okay, cool.
Sucks to be
you need to isolate yourself, you know. Some people just got really scared, I think, and then that fear, I think, really just settled into some people, and
you nailed it.
It is what it is.
And existential crisis will fuck you up if you're not prepared to deal with it, right? Like, you know, your identity's wrapped up in what you do, and that's taken away at the same time. You're kind of fucked, you know?
Yeah. Luckily, I'm having an existential crisis every day since I've been born, so it wasn't nothing new to me. I was like, why is everybody... This fire's not even that bad. Why don't you guys... I don't know. Felt normal to me.
Yeah, that was like, you know, our world shut down and stuff like that, but I'm like sneaking out, driving in a city where there's like barely anybody out to
It
go
was
and
nice,
sneak through the
right?
back door of it was awesome to go
Yeah.
sneak through the back door of my gym to do jujitsu with like,
Mm-hmm.
20 people. We had the
Yeah.
windows papered because people kept calling the hospital, like our health authority on us and stuff. And yeah, we just kept training, doing jujitsu, and it was awesome.
Yeah. After a while, you had
So
to like let it
I didn't have to
go.
I didn't have to worry about my shop or anything. I have great
Mhm.
landlords, but yeah, it was, but yeah, definitely other people didn't come out the other side as, smiley as I did.
No, I mean, it takes a certain type. And I mean, yeah, I mean, I think we're all gathered here today.
Exactly. Hey, I want to know, I'm going to get this back onto tattooing. What the difference is between tattooing in New York and on the West Coast or Texas. You work in a particular vein. You like the traditional stuff. How is that different in those cities? Because it is, right?
Yeah, I
Like the
mean, the certain
clientele
places are
and the
buying. Yeah.
styles. And,
Yeah, it is. Well, I mean, I've stayed in Texas. I'm not in Texas because I like it. Let's be very clear. As a black woman, as a queer woman, as all these things, it's fucking hot and hostile in this bitch. But the tattooing, traditional tattooing, it's so good here. People
Yeah,
really are well adjusted to it and they understand what it means. Like the language of it is very clear here in Texas. And
yeah,
like as far as tattooing, they want a traditional tattoo or they want like a strong black and gray tattoo, like photorealism, and like that's kind of it. But in New York, people are very spoiled. They've seen everything and they think they know everything. And I feel like it depends on what shop you work at in New York. If you work at a shop that's really only pumping that out, then people will only come from it for it. But if you're in a street shop, you're just going to be doing fucking realism and really tiny, poorly done, fine line bullshit, like not like cool Jack
yeah,
Rudy fine line, like the
yeah,
line on
yeah.
the finger thing. And on the West
Rigorous.
Coast, I mean, definitely like I struggled LA, all that shit. Like I feel like I can't hit it on the head at all with the traditional stuff over there. Um, San Francisco, that's a little different. Like if you're working over there, they fucking get it. Lyle shops over there, Hardy shops over, they get it over there. So it kind of
Yeah,
depends on the shop, I guess, as well. But
yeah.
Texas knows.
Yeah. Thanks,
Isn't
Dave
it?
Lum.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
totally.
like Dave Lum used to be here, the Shaws used to be here. There's like a really strong traditional backbone here
Yeah,
that people
yeah,
fully
yeah. Early
understand.
perfection days and stuff. Yeah, like Texas.
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
that's it. Just Texas traditional.
Yeah,
It's a thing.
it's cool. I really,
Style.
really like it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I definitely would have liked to have gotten around to some shops and stuff while I was there, but fuck that place.
Yo, and
Like
you came
it
here to
was so
work in
hot for
it.
me, man. Like we were there for under a week. We ended up leaving 2 days early. 43 degrees, man. I cannot take that
You
shit.
can't take
That
a
was
Canadian into a Texas summer and expect them to survive. Like,
I mean,
no.
I'm barely holding on here. Like, that was the worst summer I've had since I've been here. Like, it was steady 105 every day.
Yeah,
There's
oh
that's
there's
fuck,
just no
like
reason to go outside.
and
that's
like no
brutal.
rain for like no significant rain for like a
No
year. Like
rain.
fuck.
Mm-mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was white.
Yeah, like
Sucked.
our Airbnb guy was saying that it was 105 around 105 for the 84 days in a row.
Jesus
And
Yeah.
I was just
fuck.
like, that's not okay.
No,
Yeah,
it
this
was
was
not.
Bucky's was like my big thing in Texas. That was it. And I
Yeah.
stopped on my way to Bucky's on the way to the airport to leave. So
You have no idea how happy that makes me. Like, I'm so obsessed with Buc-ee's. It's like a religion. You walk into that store for the first time, you're like, what? Like, it's a
it
gas
was
station
crazy.
mecca. It's amazing.
We were in there for probably over an hour.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, I love it.
It was
Oh
awesome.
fuck.
It is.
Oh,
Oh my
crazy.
god. Yeah. All right. You've worked with some significant people historically in tattooing and stuff.
Yeah.
let's touch on like some of the women specifically that you've had an
Yeah.
opportunity to work with, if you don't mind. That bringing us back to that kind of your post that you were doing on your Instagram.
Oh yeah, for sure. I feel like, I mean, that's a good question. Like, because I want to think of who maybe had the biggest. I mean, I would always say that Jackie Gresham has the biggest influence on me, just as a black woman. Having her come in, because no matter how hard it feels for me, I was like, it wasn't the '70s. Like, that's significantly more difficult. And when she
Yeah.
talks about all the shit she had to go through and the racism she had to deal with, like not any of that like passive racism that I deal with, like full on racism, people in her face, and her not giving a fuck, and then going on to open that shop and maintain it up until last year, it just closed,
Oh,
is
so
amazing.
that's the thing. Like, I don't know a lot of this history because a lot of tattoo history, if
Oh
you don't
yeah.
actually, even when you buy
Yeah.
books, it's very specific. So a lot of my
Totally.
history is oral history from my mentors and very Canada specific, West Coast specific and stuff. So where was she tattooing? Where did she
She was
kind of
tattooing in
like? Where
New
was her
Orleans.
shop?
It was in New Orleans.
Oh shit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So she went through it all. You know, Katrina, like she's seen the world turn and turn and turn. But she opened up that shop in the '70s, and it was the oldest shop in New Orleans, and it was the first black-owned professional tattoo shop in America. Period.
Wow.
So to also have that going on for you, so you know, we're just talking about the country coming out of segregation less than a decade before that,
Yeah.
to have that open
Yeah.
up and to be, and she was doing it. I mean, she was out there getting tattooed by Ed Hardy and Jack Rudy. Like she was putting in those miles and putting in that work, and then opened up that shop and maintained that shop. And it's history up until last year. She just retired because I saw her at a like convention. I saw a picture of her working at a convention. I was like, okay, like, you know, it's like, oh, I'm just gonna do like the little tattoos. We never actually retired, but as a female in
No.
tattooing, she's always the first person that comes to mind, and then next, Kate Helen Brandt comes to mind. I think people
Yeah.
are most, they understand her the most when they think of her relationship to uh, Norman Collins, Sailor Jerry, um,
Yeah.
and because she was the first woman to kind of be in that club of those guys. All those real cool pictures that you see. I don't know if you've ever seen them, but it's like this room where you can see that, like that Huck Spalding back piece that he has, and Tom DeVito's
Yeah.
back piece. And she was the one in the room taking those pictures that day. Like she was the first female to kind of infiltrate that boys club, and not take
Yeah.
no for an answer. That's one fucking thing I can say about Kate. She was never going to take no for an answer, and began her tattoo career traveling around with these guys, traveling around with Malone, going over to Hawaii, learning the craft of tattooing, not allowing them to gatekeep it from her. And I mean, but she put in her miles though, like she earned everything that she had. And then
Yeah.
maintaining that career up until the day she died. She died 2 years ago now. Oh no, a year and a half,
Yeah.
almost 2 years ago. Um, she had just a massive influence on me, especially once I moved to Texas, because at that time she also had moved to Texas. So when I first started visiting Texas, I would visit her shop and just hang out with her and shoot the shit. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm gonna buy you lunch and buy you coffee and like just hang out. Um, but then once I moved here, like I really started hanging out with her, and she was able to. At one point, we were gonna write a book together. She wanted me to help her write her memoirs, so she was letting me into her library, which was like,
Wow.
it was like a vault. I don't know. It was like a vault, and I mean, it had everything, all these like just just tons of flash, like hand drawn stencils from Sailor Jerry, pictures I'd never seen before, love letters. Like every tattooer was into her. Like it was fucking crazy. Uh, and I guess I also have to mention Kate, because if it wasn't for Kate, I wouldn't have met Lyle Tuttle, because I met Lyle Tuttle at one of her parties, and you know, he I mean, he just took me under his wing, and his mentorship was just huge, massive. So those two ladies come to mind immediately. I also, when I worked at Classic, like I said, shared space with Andrea Elston. She worked there. Andrea Elson is a historically significant female
From
tattooer. She also came from New York City. She used to work
from New
at
York,
yeah,
East
East
Side
Side
Inc.
Inc. Yeah. So that was
Yeah,
cool having that there in the shop because I was like, oh God, like you get it, like
yeah,
not all Texas.
yeah.
I think Texas is smart now.
She did almost she did the bodysuit for Rick to Life from 25 to Life.
Yeah,
I don't know if you
and
know
she
that
did.
hardcore band or not, but
Dude, she is so rad, and she has that edge to her. Like she's a part of like the music community, the biker community. Like she's just so cool. It's like one day I want to be as cool
yeah,
and can tattoo fast. I'd never seen anybody tattoo that fast and so well and proficient in my life. And it has a lot to do with the fact that, I mean, for all of us, like it's training your hands. So she also does like sculpting and etching and painting. Like she's all around well-rounded artist, which has made her, I mean, she retired too. She's maybe 5 years ago she retired, but it's
okay,
okay.
cool. That's
Yeah.
funny because every once in a while she would like pop into mind, or I would see like an old photo of something. I'd be like, oh, what the fuck ever happened to her?
She's
And
hiding
yeah,
out in
just again,
Texas right
I'm not.
now.
Yeah. Oh,
She married a
yeah.
famous
Yeah.
country singer, and he recently passed away. Like that was really the last thing I heard was
Oh,
that like her husband had passed away. I want to say his name is Hal Ketchum. I'm not
I'll have to look
super
that up.
well versed on country singers, but I feel like that was so. That's what happened. She retired.
Me neither.
Yeah, she moved to she moved to like a town that she described as like a one light town, like there's only one street light in the town, and was living with her countryman.
Yeah.
So that's the life. Like, no, I wish that we all could have that. Like, just to edge out
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to happen
Yeah.
for me. I
Oh,
don't think so.
yeah. I remember when East Side Inc. when that came about, like they just took over. Like they were in every international tattoo.
They were
Because it was
pushing
her
it.
and Sean Vasquez. Yeah, they were pushing it. So it was like you had like Fun City, Eastside Inc. at the time, and then like Fly Right out in
You
Brooklyn.
got
Those were
it.
like the three, like
Mhm.
Yeah,
kind of like the new school, old
yeah,
school kind of like transitional shops for New
yeah.
York and stuff. And
Those
yeah,
were like
that
the
was just
dream
like
shops.
fuck
Like I was like,
yeah,
I'm gonna work at Fun City
yeah,
one day. Like, yeah, they were all stars.
yeah, yeah, amazing. All right. So who have you worked with Vivian many times? Have you traveled out to Seattle much or
I have guested there 3 times. And
okay.
she wants me to come out again next year, but I don't know. Tattooing's a little funky right now, so I don't know. Her shop is definitely not a street shop. It's a private studio for sure. I mean, it's a street shop, but it's
Yeah,
like the walk-in traffic isn't very heavy there, so I don't know if it's a good
yeah.
time to go out there to work. But she's wild. She was a wild woman. I mean, she was like the first female tattooer to be heavily tattooed. Um, and she was broken in by Danny Dietzel. So she was with some real rough motherfuckers. And she was like, I mean, you could pull up pictures of her and she's just butt ass naked with her titties hanging out and just bent over with the full sleeves. Like she was hardcore as fuck. And, now she's just like a wispy cat lady. Like she just does her
Yeah.
painterly tattoos and goes home and wants to be left alone. Like she's really, really rad. But I mean, she's seen it all. And
Yeah, I would
tattoos,
love to bug her to have her come on.
she would love to. She would do it. Absolutely. I'll pass on the information if you
Yeah,
want me to. Like she would love to do that. And
absolutely. I'll reach out to
it's
her. Just
important for
that
you guys to have the
coming up in
document.
Vancouver. Oh, okay, yeah, like coming up in Vancouver, it was just that cross border, seeing her stuff, always know who
Yeah.
she was and stuff like that, and just
That's so
and
cool.
just her tattooing was just like it was just different, right? Like you said, her painterly stuff. She was doing that
Hmm.
so long ago, and it was just like hers.
Yeah.
You could never mistake her tattoo for anybody else
Yeah,
No.
totally.
at
Yeah.
all. Like,
She walked into Craftsman when I was working there one day. She was in town. I can't remember with who, and it was the fucking freakiest thing. I was like, "What the fuck?" Like, no one knew
Yeah.
who she was. I was just like, "Guys, like, you got to meet this woman. She's incredible."
Yeah.
Like,
It's like this is
and she's
important.
incredible. Like,
Yeah.
she's her own personality. It was amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
cool,
She's super cool.
awesome.
I'm getting text messages from Rob Jobe, who's one of our benefactors for this podcast. And he's like, he goes, "Here we go then. The first ever text question for whoever you're interviewing." He has no idea. I just showed him a
Oh,
screenshot
sick.
that we're interviewing. And he's
It's a
like,
call-in show. Love it.
he's like, "In these days of oversaturation in tattooing, what deems a professional?" And this is a conversation that a Canadian artist had posted on their profile earlier this week about we don't have any accreditation or schools or associations in tattooing, at least not in Canada. What deems you a professional? Is it that you work in a shop? Is it that you can buy stuff? Like, what is it?
I have this conversation a lot. I
Bring it.
So to me, there's a couple of factors. One is time. And so I would say that if this person is like a self-taught artist, then maybe if you're a self-taught artist for 5 years, you could call yourself a professional. So long as the next factor lines up, which is how are you tattooing? Are you doing it in like a OSHA certified way? Or are you tattooing people in the fucking bathroom at McDonald's? Like, some people do that for 20 years and they're not professionals. So all these things need to line up. And the third thing seems to be the umbrella under which you sit. Because even if you are at an accredited shop and you're working under a mentor and you're being apprenticed, right? But you've only been tattooing a year, I still wouldn't call that person a professional tattooer yet. I feel like you
Yeah.
still need to I don't know what clicks. In the industry, we always say 5 years. 5 years is when you like stop making big mistakes. 10 years is when you should stop shitting the bed. Like, so it varies now because there's so many different, I'm not quite sure where it's going with tattoo shops. It seemed to be, I'm working in a private studio right now. Like, I don't really know, but I would say it's got to be the right combination of time in the way in which you're practicing your craft and like who you have to give you your verification for what you're doing. It's tough.
Yeah,
That's
it
why
is
it's so
tough.
easy for the grifters
Yeah.
to get in. That's why they're in. Because we've worked so
I know.
long
Yeah.
to make this mysterious and undefinable. This is all our fault. We did this. And now we're looking for
100%.
structure. And it's like, oh, some
Yeah.
old timey fucking folktale. We're telling them for structure. It's like, what? So, yeah. It's rough.
Yeah, for a person to think of themselves as a professional, they just need validation, and they usually
Yeah.
just get that
Yeah.
validation from strangers online. They
Totally.
post pictures of shit, and you see like 100 comments, like, "Oh my god, that's amazing," and it's like, which part are you looking at?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But everybody sees something a little differently, and I've always said, this is what I've always said, that art is subjective, tattooing is not.
Correct.
It's either good or it's not.
Yeah.
Period. It's either got good line work or it doesn't. It either has solid fucking coloring or it doesn't. There's no fucking in between. And I think there's too much of that art is subjective trying to cross over into tattooing now. It's like being shitty isn't a style.
They sure are.
But
making
apparently
it
it
a
is.
style, though. Like,
Well,
it's hard to make that claim. Like, shitty tattooing is a style. People made it a
Yes.
style. Like, and I don't get it
yeah,
because I'm
totally.
like, but when we write the history books,
Yeah.
we're going to talk about this 15-year gap where scribbles, or ignorant style is what they're calling it, took over.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think art schools might have something to do with this too. Like if you go to art school, they teach you that, what your self-expression is trumps everything else, and it doesn't matter what your technical ability is. Whereas back in the
Yes.
past, you had to be a masterful artist in order to be a professional or to be accepted. And
Yeah.
I see that. I talk to young tattooers, they're like, well, that's just my style. And it's like, but that's fucking on somebody's body. It's not that doesn't wash anymore, like go do that on a
No.
canvas or something. But
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a tough spot that we're
Yeah.
in
That's a hard
tattooing
one.
in terms of that. It really is, because, and it's a generational thing too. There's a generation that exists now that doesn't believe that they can be wrong about anything. Like, they're
Yeah,
extraordinarily
there's that.
articulate. So it's like you want to help them and you want to kind of say like, all right, well, this is your style, that's fine, but there's like a right way and a wrong way to do it, because what you're doing is not new. Like, this has existed before. So I can show you some examples of how you can make your like fucking amoeba looking flash sheet maybe look like something interesting, because I mean, Tom DeVita existed and lived and had a great career, did he not? Like, there are
Absolutely.
examples of this where you can push it forward, but right now these motherfuckers don't want to be told what to do. So I'm like, you just gotta like stay in your lane and keep your eyes forward and not look left or right. Like, just don't pay attention to what
Yeah.
anyone else is doing and just keep pushing it forward, because you can't stop them. You can't stop anybody from doing anything.
No,
Yeah.
You know?
no,
No,
it's true.
absolutely not.
No.
No. So, you started, it's funny listening to you talk, because like you started in 2009ish, but it sounds like you started in the early 90s, kind of the root and the people that you worked with and stuff.
Totally.
Like on it, and yeah, like being a, even now being a queer Black woman in tattooing is not easy.
No.
So what made you decide that you wanted to take what would be for most people the harder route kind of into tattooing? Like, what made you decide that you were going to bust down doors rather than go through the many doors that are now more open to, inclusivity, I'll just say as a general term?
It's almost like you confronted the industry and were like, you have to accept me on my terms, rather than some people would deviate another way and just hide away and do it on their own.
Yeah, that's a good question. I understood, even before I started tattooing, I was getting tattooed, so I was heavily tattooed. I understood that it didn't belong to anybody. I was like, this can belong to anyone. It just appears that you need to go through this very specific set of hurdles to get to where you want to go. Because again, I was just lucky enough to see tattooers who were broken in traditionally. I saw what they were doing. So I just understood that that was what I was supposed to do, even though I didn't see anybody that looked like me doing it. I just knew that I was supposed to do it. So call it arrogance or call it just like being like useful and not understanding. I was just like, I have to go to these places and do these things. And it worked. Like, being that type of person and being very honest and transparent with people, saying like, hey, I've only been tattooing a couple of years, but this is really important to me. Like, I am looking at this Cat Coleman tattoo. I want a tattoo like that. Show me how to do that. I don't understand, and something's not right with my work, and I know something's not right with it, and it's not clicking. And so you take one step forward and work there, and then they'd send you on to the next place and the next place and the next place until it starts clicking. And really, I had a podcast that I did with Rich Fi, and the whole point of the podcast was trying to define what traditional tattooing is. Is it the style? Is it a mindset? Is it a color palette? Like, what is it? And really what we came to terms was, it's a way of being. It's a way of being in here, and a folk artness to it that translates onto the skin in your approach. Like, you can, because how you can tell the difference? Like, how you can tell the difference between someone who is copying a traditional tattoo and just doing it real pretty, and someone who like really is a traditional tattooer and is doing, I don't know how to explain what that really subtle nuance is, but I can see it. And a lot of other people can see it. So I just knew that I wanted to do that and be that and have that. Like, I felt that sense of community in tattooing, and I knew, I mean, it's addictive, right? Like, we've all done it. You've all been a young person and walked in a tattoo shop and been fucking overcome with that. I was like, I want to be on the other side of it. And like, luckily it worked out and I didn't go to jail or anything. And like, it was great. I'm very happy with it.
Uh, this is, I think, the third time you've mentioned the possibility of going to jail.
Yeah, never
In
happened.
all our interviews, you think you're the only one who's mentioned
Oh,
it.
they're either lying or not trying hard enough. I don't know which one it is.
Yeah.
So
So,
funny.
you mentioned it before. When did you open your private studio?
It'll be 2 years in February on Valentine's Day.
Oh,
Oh, cool.
cool.
How
Nice.
cute,
That's an
Right
right?
on.
auspicious day. That's a
Yeah.
perfect day.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
because it's called
And
Lonely
is
Hearts
it just
Club,
you?
so I wanted there to be the,
Yeah.
like the
Oh,
correlation between.
nice.
Yeah. See, that's tattooer thinking. The self-marketing, all that stuff comes very natural to a lot of us kind of carny style personalities. I
Yeah.
think a lot of people don't get that,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
right?
I
So,
tell that to young tattooers all the time. I'm like, it's a vaudeville act, and if you don't understand that, you're probably going to struggle a
Totally.
little bit, you know.
yeah.
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 Yeah,
And
it's a
are you working by yourself?
Yes, I love it. It's actually like I've noticed it's good for me. It's good for me in a
oh,
way I
good.
Okay.
never thought because I never wanted this. I need to be like super clear. I never wanted this. I always wanted to work in a shop forever. I thought I would just live and die in a shop. And I guess that's why I continue to guest so heavily is because I don't ever want to lose that part of me. I don't ever want to
Yeah.
isolate and like just be this like sucking in my own farts and saying that they smell good. Like I need to go out there and still be a part of the show. But I've noticed a huge shift in my work. Like I've noticed that I'm able to really like go balls out on the more large scale compositions that I take on because there's no one around, so I don't get caught up in the jokes and the conversations and going across the street to hang out for like 5 minutes at the bar and blah blah blah. Like when I'm here, I'm here, like it's true, but and it's
Yeah.
like, when I'm working in a street shop and I'm, hustling and doing walk-ins, like that is my heart for sure. But when I'm
Yeah.
here, people are getting like my soul and it shows. I feel
Yeah.
like it really, so I'm happy to have this space.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I get that. Because I thrive in street shops. Just bang them out. Like I love
Yeah,
that, and yeah, working on larger scale stuff in my shop. If there's a lot of people around and talking, I'm easily distracted. Because
very.
I'm used to just like the fast action of the day. Like if you can't like tattoo and talk like this, like doing flash, you're not
Yeah.
surviving, right? So,
No.
but you can't when I'm working on larger stuff, and if I do that, I'm like, fuck, you're right. I
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
just can't. I 100%
Yeah.
understand where you're coming from. I
Yeah.
don't think I could work by myself though. I would drive myself crazy.
Fuck.
I drive people around me crazy. So
I tried it and I quit tattooing.
yeah,
Yeah,
Dave
just
quit
like
tattoo.
no more.
Yeah, I tried it. I tried it again, and I ended up with 7 people in the shop. Like it's just
There
like,
it is.
no, I need. Yeah, I need to be social, but that's.
Yeah.
Oh fuck.
Yeah, but well, that's awesome. Where can people find you?
Oh, you can't. Lonely Hearts Club is like very purposefully off the grid. But you can
Perfect.
find me on Instagram at Before the Wrath Comes. You can also find the shop at Lonely Hearts Club TX on Instagram. You can Google Lonely Hearts Club TX. And that's how you'll have access. That's how you can email me. That's how we vet people and see if you're a good fit to even get tattooed at the shop. And if
Cool.
not, you can always catch me on the road. Right now, I'm doing regular guest spots at Spiral Tattoo in Michigan, which was Leo Zulueta's shop, now owned by Jared. He just recently got the shop because Leo retired. Again, people retiring and
Yeah,
Amazing.
vacate.
awesome.
And I also do regular guest spots in Chicago at Taylor Street Tattoo, which is owned by Keith Underwood. That used to be Rolo's old shop.
Yeah.
You can catch me out there two
Yeah,
to three times a year for sure.
Nice.
very
Nice.
cool. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was
absolutely.
like
Like,
way. You guys are throwing softballs. That was super easy.
Yeah, and honestly, like when you start writing your books and stuff, I want to definitely have you back on so we can dive even
Yes.
deeper into some of
Oh, I'd
this
love to.
history for sure. Like
Yeah,
that would
I
be
would
so awesome.
absolutely.
And if you're, and
That would
if
be
you're ever
awesome.
on the road going through Canada, make sure you let us know, and
I
Yeah, we'll
will.
hook
make sure
you
Like,
you
up.
yeah,
place the
trust me,
park.
I'd show up.
All right,
Nice.
Oh, and if you see
awesome,
King
Sharky.
Flanagan, tell him I said hello.
Oh, I'll be seeing that fat piece of shit soon.
That's how Shawn says I love you.
Yeah.
Oh,
Last time I saw Len was last year. We did a convention together, and yeah, he decided he wanted to try and do jujitsu at 2 a.m, drunk in the casino bar.
that
He ended
sounds
up with
right.
rug burn all on his face. It was awesome. It was a great time. I love that guy.
I love
So,
that. That's so cool.
yeah. Fantastic. Awesome. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining
You
us.
too,
Thanks,
guys.
Good Guy Supply. Yeah,
Cheers.
for
Have a good
Take
supporting
day.
care.
us. And of
No
course,
worries. Thank you.
thank you. Where's my mouse? I have no idea.
Oh,
Oh, there it is. Oh, buddy. That was
she's
great.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah.
Top
I would
5.
love this. I would love this. Oh, shit. I'm going to message. I'm going to hit record here.
There.
We've missed this one time before, and so many people were like, what the fuck? So we
Okay.
always normally ask top 5 tattooers, put people on the spot. But what we
Oh.
want to know is we want to know, what are the top 5 tattooers you would want to be tattooed by?
Oh. Stoney St. Clair. Wait, do they have to be alive?
They should be, but I guess
Okay.
no. No.
Well,
It should be
if I could
the top 5 you would
necroman
love to
Stoney
be
St.
tattooed by.
Clair.
Yeah.
I would bring him back from the grave and get tattooed by him. But a living, Anderson Luna. He tattoos in New York, in Manhattan. I think his tattooing is like utterly prolific. He does a lot of large scale black work, ornamental, but it comes from a real traditional space because he used to work at
Yep.
like Tough City and shit. So I think his work is incredible. 5, huh?
I know it's hard, right?
It's very hard. Oh, let me see.
Yeah.
Oh, Valerie Vargas.
Oh,
Yeah. If I could get tattooed by her, just get blessed. I mean, just as far as female tattooers, I've just never seen anybody pull off the stuff that she does. Like the composition, the colors. Like, I don't even get color tattoos anymore, and I would let her
The
do.
composition that she can do in a hand-sized tattoo is
It's insane.
it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny because
That's-
she's definitely one of the most copied
Oh yeah.
lady faces on the planet, but you can always tell that it's not her. Always.
Yeah. Every time.
Other people do great copies, or taking her style and made it their own or whatever stuff. But when it's Valerie, when you're scrolling, it's like that.
Yeah, without a doubt. Like, yeah, she's incredible. Who else is like rocking it so hard right now? I mean, I guess Andre Malcolm. I mean, I feel like I couldn't get tattooed by him simply because he just does fucking back pieces, gigantic fucking back pieces. But like, if I could put a back piece over my back piece, which is beautiful, it was done by Jason June. I'd slap a Andre Malcolm back piece right on top of that motherfucker without even. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with his work.
I'm very familiar. I've actually reached out to him. He left me on Read. It's pretty funny. Yeah. But his work, same. I started following him a long time ago. Had no idea who he was at all, and just the fucking scale of the work he was doing and not fucking up the composition.
Never fucks up the composition. He draws. It's every day, every night, and he does it live too. So you can watch him on Instagram or on YouTube. I actually
Yeah.
got to interview them too, so I can send them a
Sweet.
message if you want, and just be like, "Yeah, these guys are cool." Like, give them like a couple of minutes. Uh, Actually, funny story. When I was interviewing him, there was a fucking
Yeah.
earthquake, so we have it on film. Like during the interview, it's like,
Where can I find your guys' podcast?
Oh, so it's crazy. You have to go on Instagram. And because at the time I had less than 10,000 followers, they wouldn't let me post it on my page. So they're all on Rich Fi's page. So if you go to Rich Fi's
Okay.
Instagram, which is just literally Rich Fi, RICHFIE, and you go to the Reels section and you
Yeah.
scroll down, you'll see them. Like, it's called Welcome to the Backrooms. And you'll see it's like all
Okay.
split screen. So you'll see like 3 of us in there.
Awesome. I need
But
to
yeah,
check those out. Absolutely.
please do. Yeah, they're
I
fun.
know I absolutely will. I'll even repost them. I don't have many followers, but I'll repost them too. Like shit like
I
that
would,
needs to be seen and heard and watched and passed
I really
around.
appreciate that. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
important to have that stuff logged in for the next generation.
absolutely.
So that's 3. Okay.
That's 3.
Um, 2 more people that I would love to be tattooed, or no, yeah, that I would be tattooed by. Um, I gotta be honest with you. I to be very real here. I feel like I have been lucky enough to be tattooed by all the people I've wanted to be tattooed by. So I don't have many more people on the wish list, which is why I always talk about like dead people, because
Yeah.
that's like a real wish list. Because the only other person that comes to mind is Thomas Hooper, and I got tattooed by him twice, and like I can't really think of anybody else I would let touch me. And
Bring the dead people in.
yeah, I mean, I would love to get tattooed by Cap Coleman if I could go back, and I would love to have gotten tattooed by Millie Hull. Millie Hull was
Who's that?
like, so Millie Hull was like the first like hard female tattooer in New York City out on the Bowery. And she like used to work in the circus, and she realized that people like ladies in the circus who were heavily tattooed made more money than the ones that weren't. So she like immediately started getting heavily tattooed by Charlie Wagner, and I mean just like her whole body. But from that,
Wow.
learned how to tattoo and began tattooing out on the Bowery. And her work is so amazing, just like the most beautiful, solid, you know, turn of the century traditional tattoos. They're so rad. And like her story's real hardcore. She was like a super depressed lady, and she I mean unalived herself, I guess is the correct term for it. But she did it by poisoning her drink and went to the bar and drank it. And I always thought that was like so hard. Like
That's
so
hardcore.
yeah, I would
I
love to
met
meet her.
an unhappy young woman when I was a teenager when I lived on the streets, and I thought she had been attacked because of her throat scar, and no, she tried to
Ah,
unalive herself
she
by
missed.
slitting her own throat,
That
and
that
she
shit's so
survived. And I was
hard.
like, "That's fucking hard." Now you need to look at that every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, that I'm very fascinated. I have
Holy
like
fuck!
morbid fascinations for sure. So like I'm fascinated by stuff
Wow.
like that. But there's so many
But
amazing
like to take your
tattooers now
drink to a bar, yeah, there
Yep,
is. Yeah,
in public.
yeah. Is there a book on Millie, or like how
So
can
there
people find out
isn't.
more
There's
about her?
no. If there is, I've never seen it. Like a lot of
So you
the
got to get on
pictures
this
of her.
shit.
Yeah, you gotta. I know. You know, you can find like little Google things here and there about her, but other than that, yeah, like there's not a lot of deep dive on her
Yeah.
and many women, which is kind of why I'm like spazzing right now. Is like I really need
I was
to.
just gonna say,
Dig
like
in.
it's the unfortunate boy thing about the boys club that, you know, 30 years ago, not a lot of people care. A lot of people even cared about other guy tattooers to buy a book about them. Um,
Yeah.
but unfortunately now, the case is that a lot of the guys are still around. A lot of the early women are not, and there's not a lot. There's really
Hmm.
only minimal oral record and stuff. So people really need to get on this. Like I want to reach out to Vivian. I want to reach out to like Deb from Alaska, like Deb
Yarn, yeah,
Yarian.
Deb's
I bought her
amazing.
Yarn. I bought her book, How to Be a Tattoo Artist. That little
Yeah,
manual that she put out was
it's so
so
great. It's fucking
fucking
funny.
funny.
Very
It's
tongue in
so,
cheek.
yeah, so good. But there's so many people that, that should have record.
We interviewed her
And
too.
Man, you need. I need to check this shit out. I need to listen to that stuff,
Got
man.
it.
That's awesome. That's great, and I really do. I hope you work on some print. Like, I hope you curate some kind of book or something like that. That would be very cool because you sound so interested, but not just interested, but you've actually been like in there. You know what I mean? Like, you've spent time with a lot. Like,
Yeah.
I know stories of old tattooers, but I didn't get to work with a lot of them, and
Yeah.
I was fortunate to have a mentor that was able to give me a lot of oral history about Canada and even outside of Canada and stuff. But I didn't get to work with those people, man. You got to like travel around and actually like not just meet these people, but you got to work beside these people,
Yeah.
and I really, really hope that you get the time and opportunity to start putting this down on paper.
Yeah, I mean,
Cool
when
as
I say I'm
fuck.
working on it, I mean like I really am working on it. I
Good.
mean, like I was the. Do you guys know what the National Association is like up in Canada?
Yep.
Of course, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
We don't have it up here, but we know that it's the cool thing.
yeah, and so like I became a member of the NTA just before. Now it's defunct; they're done. But Lyle Tuttle was my sponsor into the NTA. So once I got in and went to that convention, it was like I feel like I was one of the last young tattooers to have that experience and get those stories from those people. Like there's a whole little separate book I want to write or something just about like that last NTA convention and seeing these tattooers like literally tattoo at that convention for the last time. It was like
Yeah.
it's interesting hearing someone else say it, but it's true. Like my eyes have seen some rarities in tattooing, and I do feel like I have to get the type in, but I always feel like I'm going to turn out like The Shining. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to start writing a book and it's going to turn out real bad.
Oh man, yeah, but you got to think you're not writing a fictional story where somebody
I'm
can or
not.
can't like it. Like, you're kind of just covering like history and stuff, and sure there'll be people that can disagree with it and stuff, but they can go fuck themselves. So
They certainly
right.
can.
No, but I also think for stuff like that, I think there is a more, there's always been divisions in tattooing, of course, but I think there's a much larger body of young tattooers that want that traditional sense, and they want to know more about tradition. They want to know
Yeah.
those stories, but they don't have any access to it because they're not being mentored by the old guy in their city. They were mentored by their buddy that's the same age as them, that was mentored by his
Mm-hmm.
buddy that was the same age as him and stuff. So
Amazon
yeah, I think that would
tattooer,
be
the
cool.
new tattooer now.
Yeah, so yeah, look forward to it. I really look forward to seeing your work just continuously grow. Honestly, your
Thank
work is just
you.
fucking bold and badass. It's just, I just see every time. I know that's the same now with your stuff. When I'm scrolling, just
Yes,
it's always like, oh, come back, and it's just like your big ornamental stuff that you've been doing lately. And I just like, oh, I know it's you right away.
that is
Like,
so.
awesome,
Thank you so much
very
for
cool.
saying that. Like you never really know. Like I'm always one. Every time you do a tattoo, you're like, is that okay? Like, is that okay? Should I
Yeah,
push forward? Should I go? I mean, and you're always pushing forward. So it's always really validating to hear, especially from someone who's been tattooing longer
yeah.
than you. Like, oh, I fucking see what you're doing. Like, that's okay. Do that. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
yeah, yeah. We all suffer from the imposter syndrome. We all, have our self doubts and stuff in this business for
Oh,
sure. So, but Sharky, again, thank you so much for joining us, man. This was
yeah.
this was so awesome to get to know you just a little bit. I definitely going to look up your podcast, and everybody that heard about that should also go and look it up. And hopefully, we'll talk to you again soon.
Yes. Oh, also, I wanted to add when I was talking about Spiral
Yes.
Tattoo, I'm not sure if I said that the owner was Jared Leathers or Jeremy Leathers because I always say it wrong. It's Jared. If I said Jeremy, it's Jared, just so everyone knows. I always fuck that up because I don't know why Jeremy Miller's always on my mind. I always fucking say the wrong thing.
Okay. Good
But yes,
catch.
thank you for having me. Yeah, I was like, in case you can edit it and post, whatever you're going to do.
Yeah. Awesome. We don't do too much editing. We leave it pretty raw. So
Or let it
awesome.
be raw.
Cool.
Let it be
Enjoy
raw
the
and
rest of your
real.
day.
You too, all right? Bye.
All right. Take care.
It was great getting to know Curly and this amazing guy that tattooed with one arm. You know, the customer had to stretch his own skin.
So I did get blood poisoning from him twice. Yeah, twice.
Ed Hardy brought this whole Japanese influence into American tattooing.
Once Dave Shore come onto the scene, it was like tattooing completely changed.
If anybody could say anything about greaseball Japanese, it's fucking Dave Shore.
Salty, piratey, bikery, just hard not to do.
Man, he'd pull in on his chopper with the tattoos and the girls, and I mean, he was just like so cool, man.
He captured vulgarity and pleasure and insanity and recklessness.
Tattooer in the 80s or 70s, just not the same, yeah, you had to be a tough guy.
I was scared shitless. Even though I was kind of a biker guy, these were bigger biker guys, you know?
I'm not totally sure you could paint the picture accurately to somebody now getting into tattooing about what it was like then. And the only reason I would say or I feel that way, though, is because they might not believe you.
We had the limo waiting for him with all the lines of blow lined at the airport. This is the way we do it in Canada.
In the 80s, 90s, Paul Jeffries was like the king of tattooing. It wasn't just in Canada.
Like, am I supposed to stop tattooing? Because if this is what I'm supposed to aspire to, it's not gonna happen.
Each one of these old masters influenced groups of tattooers, who in turn influenced other groups of tattooers.
The True North Strong Tattoo Book. This is a massive tattoo encyclopedia of Canadian tattooers. 350 pages. It's an 11 by 17 coffee table format. Shawn and Dan worked tirelessly to get this thing out, and sadly it never made it to print, so it's available for free download at theholdfastsocialclub.com and championtattoo.ca.